Sign the check right now or we're calling 911. My own mother said it like she was ordering coffee. Calm. Cold. Like the $800,000 sitting in my account somehow belonged to her. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. From disbelief. Because the two people who raised me were standing in my living room, threatening to have me arrested over a gift that was legally mine. And they really thought I would fold. Before I tell you how I turned that threat into the biggest mistake of their lives, subscribe to this channel. Because sometimes the people who betray you share your last name, and the only way to survive is to outsmart them. My name is Ava. I'm 27 years old. And until last year, I believed my parents loved me unconditionally. I grew up in a quiet suburb outside Columbus, Ohio. My dad ran a small construction company. My mom stayed home, managed everything, made sure dinner was on the table at 6. We weren't rich, but we were stable. Or at least that's what I thought. Then my grandmother passed away. She was my dad's mother. Strong. Sharp. The kind of woman who never forgot a birthday and never let anyone push her around. I was the only grandchild who visited her every week after college. I'd sit at her tiny kitchen table while she told me stories about how she built her life from nothing after my grandfather died. 3 months after her funeral, I got a certified letter. I remember standing in my apartment kitchen, staring at the envelope like it might explode. When I opened it, my heart dropped into my stomach. She left me $800,000. Not my parents. Not split between us. Me. I actually sat down on the floor and cried. Not because of the money. Because she trusted me. Because she saw something in me. When I called my dad to tell him, there was this pause. Just a little too long. That's generous, he finally said. My mom didn't say much at all. Just asked when the funds would be released. At first, I brushed it off. Grief makes people weird. I told myself they were processing it. The money cleared 2 weeks later. I didn't go crazy. I didn't buy a sports car or a beach house. I paid off my student loans. Set aside money for taxes. Met with a financial advisor. I was careful. Responsible. Exactly how Grandma would have wanted me to be. That's when the tone changed. My parents started coming over more often. Unannounced. Asking questions that felt less like curiosity and more like audits. How much are you earning in interest? Did you invest it yet? You know, family should help family. One Sunday, they came for dinner. I made lasagna. Opened a bottle of wine. Tried to keep it normal. Halfway through the meal, my dad cleared his throat. We've been thinking, he said. Your mother and I sacrificed a lot raising you. College wasn't cheap. I blinked. I had scholarships. And loans. I'm still paying. You were able to get those scholarships because of the foundation we gave you. My mom cut in softly. That money, it's really a blessing for all of us. All of us. The phrase echoed in my head like a warning bell. Dad leaned forward. We need capital to expand the business. 800,000 would change everything. We could double revenue. Triple it. My fork felt heavy in my hand. You want me to invest? He shook his head. No. We want you to transfer it. We'll handle the rest. Transfer it. Like I was moving money between my own checking accounts. My stomach tightened. Grandma left it to me. My mom smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Sweetheart, we're your parents. What's yours is ours. That's when something inside me shifted. Just a little. A crack in the foundation I'd built my whole life around them. I told them I needed time to think. They didn't like that. The next week, my dad called every day. My mom sent articles about filial responsibility. One text read, "Don't forget who supported you when you had nothing." I started locking my doors even during the day. That's how uneasy I felt. Then came the afternoon that changed everything. They showed up without calling. Again. Dad was holding a folder. Thick. Official looking. We spoke to an attorney, he said as they walked in like they owned the place. Given that your grandmother was my mother, there may have been undue influence. My chest went cold. What are you talking about? Mom's voice was syrupy sweet. If we contest the will, it could get messy. Public. Very embarrassing. I stared at them. Are you threatening me? Dad didn't answer. He just opened the folder and slid a check across my coffee table. $800,000. Sign it, he said quietly. Or we call 911 and report financial coercion. Elder abuse investigations are ugly, Ava. My ears rang. My own father accusing me of manipulating my dying grandmother. For a second, I couldn't breathe. But through the panic, something else surfaced. Clarity. Because they didn't realize one small detail. And that detail was about to become my trap. The second my dad said the words, elder abuse, something inside my chest cracked wide open. Not because I believed him, but because I realized they were willing to destroy me to get that money. I stared at the check sitting on my coffee table like it was radioactive. $800,000. My grandmother's final gift. My parents' obsession. You'd really call the police on your own daughter? I asked, and my voice sounded smaller than I felt. Dad didn't blink. If that's what it takes. Mom crossed her legs, perfectly composed. Ava, honey, we're trying to protect this family. You're being emotional. Emotional? I actually laughed. A sharp, broken sound. You're accusing me of manipulating Grandma while she was dying. Dad's jaw tightened. You were always there. Alone with her. You don't think that looks suspicious? That's when it hit me. This wasn't a bluff. They'd already built a story. A narrative where I was the greedy granddaughter who whispered lies into an old woman's ear. My hands started shaking. I hated that they could still do that to me. Reduce me to a scared little girl trying to prove she wasn't bad. I didn't influence her, I whispered. Mom leaned forward. Then you won't mind letting the courts sort it out. I felt the air leave my lungs. A will contest would freeze the funds. Tie everything up for months. Maybe years. Legal fees alone could destroy me. They knew that. They were counting on it. Dad pushed the check closer. Sign it. We walk away. No drama. Walk away. Like they weren't the ones lighting the match. I stood up because if I didn't move, I was going to collapse. I need you to leave. Dad's face darkened. Don't be stupid, Ava. Leave, I repeated. For a moment, I thought he might actually grab my arm. But Mom stood first. Fine. But we're calling our attorney tomorrow. They walked out like they'd just finished a business meeting. The second the door shut, my legs gave out. I slid down against the wall and sobbed so hard my chest hurt. Not pretty crying. Not quiet tears. The kind that makes you gasp for air. I kept replaying every childhood memory. Every bedtime story. Every scraped knee my mom kissed better. Was it all conditional? Did love have a price tag I just never saw? I felt stupid. Naive. And then the guilt crept in. Maybe I should just give it to them. Maybe money wasn't worth losing my family. But another voice cut through that thought. They already chose the money. I wiped my face and forced myself to breathe. Slow. In. Out. There was something they didn't know. Something they overlooked in their rush to intimidate me. The day the funds cleared, my financial advisor insisted on one thing: documentation. Every meeting with Grandma over the past year had been logged. Every transfer recorded. And the biggest detail of all? The will hadn't been changed at the last minute. It was signed 3 years ago. Long before her health declined. Long before I moved back to Ohio. Back when she was still driving herself to church and arguing politics at Thanksgiving. There was no undue influence. There couldn't be. And then I remembered something else. The week before she passed, Grandma had squeezed my hand and said, "They're going to be angry. Promise me you won't let them bully you." At the time, I thought she meant mild disappointment. Not this. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. "You have until Friday. After that, we do this the hard way." The hard way. I stared at the message until my tears dried. They thought fear would make me obedient. They thought threatening 911 would make me crumble. But what they didn't realize was that I wasn't alone in this. Because the day I received the inheritance, I moved most of it into a trust account under professional management. Not because I didn't trust them, but because I didn't trust myself to make emotional decisions. Irony is cruel like that. If they contested the will, it wouldn't just be me fighting back. It would be the estate attorney, the trust manager, the documented witnesses who watched my grandmother sign every page. They were about to pick a fight they couldn't win. Still, it hurt. I spent that night going through old photos. searching for proof that my parents loved me in a way that wasn't tied to what I could give them. But every memory felt different now, filtered through this new reality. I barely slept. By morning, the grief had burned into something steadier. Anger. Not explosive. Not reckless. Cold. They wanted to threaten me with police? With court? With humiliation? Fine. I would give them something real to panic about. I called my attorney before I even brushed my teeth. Explained everything. The threats. The check. The 911 comment. There was a long pause on the other end. Ava, he said carefully, if they're willing to make false allegations, you need to protect yourself immediately. I know. We can file a preemptive response. And if they attempt extortion or false reporting, that's criminal. Extortion. Hearing the word out loud made my pulse steady instead of spike. This wasn't a family disagreement. This was coercion. And suddenly, I wasn't the little girl crying on the kitchen floor anymore. I was the beneficiary of a legally airtight estate, with documentation, with witnesses, with proof. They thought they were cornering me. They had no idea I was about to set the trap. Because if they wanted to play this game, I was done playing fair. Friday came faster than I expected. By Thursday night, my fear was gone. In its place was something sharper. Focus. I didn't block their number. I didn't argue. I sent one simple text to my mom. Come by tomorrow at 3. We'll settle this. She replied almost instantly. Good. Bring the check. I almost smiled. At 2:45, I turned on the small recording device my attorney had told me to use. Ohio is a one-party consent state. I only needed my permission to record the conversation. And I had it. By 3:02, they were standing in my living room again. Same posture. Same confidence. Like predators who already tasted blood. Dad didn't even sit down. Do you have it? I held up an envelope. Not the check. Just paper. Mom's eyes flicked to it, satisfied. See? This didn't have to be dramatic. I took a slow breath. Before I sign anything, I need you to repeat something. Dad frowned. What? The part about calling 911. About reporting me for elder abuse. His face tightened. Why? Because I need to understand exactly what you're accusing me of. Mom stepped in smoothly. Ava, don't start this again. No, I said, my voice calm now. Say it clearly. If I don't sign, you're calling the police and telling them I manipulated Grandma into changing her will. Right. Dad hesitated. Just for a second. Then he said it. Yes. There it was. Clear. Recorded. Undeniable. I nodded slowly. And you believe that's true? He shifted. It's what it looks like. I placed the envelope on the coffee table between us and opened it. But instead of a check, I pulled out copies. Certified documents. The will dated 3 years ago. Medical evaluations stating my grandmother was of sound mind. Witness affidavits. And finally, a letter from my attorney. Dad's confidence evaporated first. Then Mom's. What is this? She asked quietly. This, I said, is proof that Grandma made her decision long before she was sick. Long before I moved back. There was no undue influence. Dad's jaw flexed. You think this scares us? I met his eyes. No. I think this part will. I slid my phone across the table and pressed play. His voice filled the room. Sign it. Or we call 911 and report financial coercion. Elder abuse investigations are ugly, Ava. The silence that followed felt heavy. Suffocating. Mom's face drained of color. You recorded us? Yes. Dad's expression turned furious. That's illegal. No, I said softly. It's not. I leaned back, finally steady. My attorney is prepared to file a restraining order and pursue charges for extortion and harassment if you continue threatening me. If you contact my bank. If you attempt to contest the will without evidence. Everything from this point forward goes through him. For the first time in my life, my father looked small. You're turning against your own family, he spat. I swallowed the sting of that word. Family. You turned against me the second you tried to scare me into signing away Grandma's gift. Mom's eyes filled with tears. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. We raised you, she whispered. And I'm grateful for that, I replied. But raising a child doesn't give you ownership of her adulthood. Dad grabbed the papers, scanning them like he could find a loophole hidden in the margins. There wasn't one. You're making a mistake, he muttered. No, I said. I'm finally not. They left without slamming the door this time. No threats. No shouting. Just silence. The next week, their attorney sent a brief inquiry. My lawyer responded with documentation and a warning about pursuing a frivolous claim. That was the end of it. No lawsuit. Number 911 call. No court battle. They folded. And the strangest part? I didn't feel victorious. I felt clear. Like someone had wiped a foggy window I didn't even realize I was looking through my entire life. 4 months. They barely spoke to me. Holidays were quiet. Tense. But something fundamental had changed. I stopped chasing their approval. I stopped explaining my choices. I stopped shrinking to keep the peace. The $800,000 is still invested. Growing. Building the future my grandmother believed I deserved. But the real inheritance wasn't the money. It was her strength. The day she warned me not to let them bully me, she wasn't planting fear. She was planting backbone. And sometimes I wonder, did she see this coming? Did she know that the real gift wasn't financial freedom, but emotional freedom? Because the moment I refused to sign that check, I stopped being the obedient daughter afraid of disappointing her parents. I became the woman my grandmother always saw. And if you're watching this feeling guilty for protecting yourself, don't. Love doesn't demand you surrender your security. Family doesn't threaten you with handcuffs. And strength doesn't always look loud. Sometimes it's just sitting calmly in your living room, pressing play on the truth. If this story hit home, if you believe in standing up for yourself even when it's painful, subscribe to this channel. Because sometimes justice isn't about revenge. It's about finally choosing yourself.